Hi guys, we have today 2009 Freightliner Cascadia, and I'm helping a friend out. And what's happening is he has some noise in the steering wheel column. This truck actually doesn't use that Pitman arm system, but it uses like the rack and pinion system on vehicles like cars and some SUVs. And the first thing that we had to change actually was the extension, or it's like an adjustable arm, this one here. And this shaft connects the actual steering column that comes out of the firewall, and it connects down to the rack and pinion over there. This one is easy to change. The only thing is, well, the way you take it out is you have a 17 bolt with a nut here, and you take them out, and then you can use like a back hammer to get it out of the threads. But before you take it out of the threads, make sure you mark with some kind of a marker. You need to mark which teeth this thing aligns to, because otherwise you're gonna have a difference in the steering wheel when you mount it. And we changed that one, the shaft outside, but when we were changing it, I realized that this steering column has also a play right here, and if you move it sideways, you can probably hear the noise. So that shaft outside, actually, when the U-joints on the shaft, that's what actually happened. It's these U-joints on the outside. They're the weak link in this case. It's these right here. So these, they have these cylinder bearings inside here. When everything gets rusted, they start to wear out, and when they wear out, they tend to move very slow with the resistance, because they're rusted inside. So because these two on the old one, this is the new piece, but on the old one we changed last week because we thought this was the problem. And when we changed it, the old one had rusted inside here and everything was worn out. And what happened is, because of this one wearing out here and not moving, giving resistance, it actually went up to the steering column in the firewall, and it destroyed this thing here. So if you have this noise here, you have to change the whole unit. And what you have to do is you have to buy the steering column to change it, because this is where it goes into the wall, and this is part of the steering column. You don't have a choice. There's a bearing inside here that's worn out, it's destroyed. And as you can see, we have another U-joint here that most likely is probably destroyed too. So this kind of looks crazy. This is the pedal for the adjustment, and this is the way it fits here into the truck. And it kind of looks crazy, but it's not. You only have one plastic cover here. We put them outside because they're cleaning the covers. But you have 4 bolts. You have 4 bolts on the bottom cover. It's T20. And then you have 4 more bolts on this cover here. That's the bottom side of the steering wheel here. That one has the T30, and it's these big ones, T30s. So it's altogether is 8 bolts. Okay, these nuts here, they go right here. That's where the steering column mounts to the firewall. So these 4 nuts here are 13 millimeter. It's this one here. It's 13 millimeter. And then the only other thing that holds the steering column to the truck is these 4 nuts right in there. I already took 3 of them out, and I need the last one out. Those actually are they're 60 millimeter. Once you take the 60 millimeter, the steering column is gonna fall down, so you need to make sure you're ready for this, because it's disconnected from the firewall. It's disconnected from the firewall there, and it's gonna disconnect from the dashboard here. The only problem is, before you do all of that, make sure you disconnect the wiring harness that goes into the blinkers, whatever else, and the clock spring. So it has, once you disconnect them, in order to take the wire out here, it has this little T30 bolt, but because there's not much space here, I had to use a very tiny ratchet, a tiny ratchet like this. That's the only way you can take it out, because there is no space there. And to make sure you don't destroy the clock spring, because it, the steering wheel doesn't have an airbag, but you still have the buttons. So in order not to destroy the connection between the buttons and the electronics here, the clock spring is the connection where it has the tracks with the wires. They can only spin like a couple of times in each direction, so you need to make sure you lock the steering wheel. And I just used zip ties on opposite sides here. The left, I put the left side here, and then I put the right side to the left side here to lock it. So you need to make sure this doesn't move, because it's already disconnected from the shaft outside, and this thing moves extremely easily. And if you try to hold it, you are going to most likely overspin it, and you're going to break the clock spring inside. You're just going to stretch the electrical lines, and it's going to break everything inside. So that's, I'm sure that thing is very expensive, because on vehicles it's expensive. So yes, I'm sure it's going to be expensive on trucks. Anyway, you don't want to destroy it in the first place. So make sure you zip tie the steering wheel before you disconnect the whole thing. And the last thing that we have here is that 16 millimeter. You can leave all of this here to take it out, and then you need to transfer all of these units to the new one. So it's not that hard. Again, 4 30 millimeters and then 4 60 millimeters. Now we're gonna take it out outside to transfer the old stuff to the new steering wheel. Okay, we got the steering wheel column out. The trouble was the top piece, the plastic piece. Actually, I forgot to tell you, you need to take the T30 on the top piece, because it's connected to the dash. And then we have this piece here. You have to use an extension and a hammer from the outside and hammer it inside to disconnect it, because it's kind of not glued, but it's been sitting since the building of the truck. And to show you the problem, this is the problem here. There's a bearing inside. That bearing, I think the bearing is gone, and this thing where the bearing sits is gone. And as you can see on the new one, it's extremely tight. I mean, it just sits on the shaft, and that one is just destroyed. So that's your main problem. And we're now changing these parts from the new one, from the old one to the new one. And we have to disconnect the steering wheel here, and I need to use a screwdriver. Okay, I thought there was something holding the steering wheel. Well, it's not. We figured out that you can just pull out this piece that usually on the cars is the airbag, and all you have to do is just kind of grab it with your fingers in the corners where it sits next to the steering wheel, and just pull it, because the only thing holding these plastic tabs here. They go inside these rubber mounts, and the same way you push it back when you install it. So when you take it out, you pull it out, you take it out, you disconnect all these connectors, the horn and disconnectors for the buttons here. And we need to disconnect this bolt here in order to install it on the new one. Okay guys, in order to take the nut on the steering wheel, I'm using a 30mm deep socket and an impact gun to get it out. And here we go. Actually came out pretty easy. You can probably just use a bigger ratchet, and this is ready to come out. Once you get it out, I need to disconnect these zip ties, and as you can see, there's a seal tape that was broken when this was installed new. So you need to make sure that once you take this out, this has to stay at the same place so you can transfer it to the new one, and make sure you don't spin this in any direction. It needs to stay here. Okay guys, the wheel, you kind of have to have another person to bump the wheel to get it out. And once you get the clock spring out, make sure you hold it here because you don't want to break the lines inside. And the way it comes out, you have to push these tabs a little bit, and I use the screwdriver to get it between the frame here and the plastic, and very slowly to get them out. It's only 3 of them and only goes in this direction, so remember, whatever you take out, you need to get in, but this is the only direction where this goes. And I don't think you can actually make a mistake because of where this plug sits. It's on the bottom here, and this is the same way you install it. Make sure this is where the old seal was, right here. This is your guidance so you don't move. And once you get it in, you need to press these so that it installs back in. And the same way for the other side down there. And yeah, once it's clipped, that's it. This is where it clips. It's kind of surprising that it doesn't have any bolts or anything else. Usually on the cars you have bolts or nuts or whatever holding it. I guess this is an easier way. And once this is installed here, then you install the steering wheel back, and these go through the steering wheel. Okay guys, the next step, we installed the steering wheel back, and I needed a second hand, that's why I couldn't make the videos while doing it, but it's simple. You just install it back, make sure this fits in here. This is your guidance. I know that you can ask, how do you know it's going to be straight? How do you know the steering wheel is going to be straight? Okay, I've tried to mark these sometimes on vehicles, and even with markings, sometimes they don't go back to where they're supposed to be. So you can install it for now, leave it like this. You don't need to tie this a lot, just tie a little bit. And once you start on the truck, you can try to see if the steering wheel is straight or not, because you can take it out and move one tooth left or right. So don't worry about that. The next part, it's important that this doesn't move. That's what's important. So if you're close to this seal, you know, this is gonna guide your steering wheel. This you should be okay. You're gonna be very close, if not in the same spot. Unfortunately, sometimes those on cars, this nut here, or actually these lines here, have a flat line as a guide, but on this one there is no guide, so it's just the way it is. And I mean, just remember that this part of the U-joint is here, down here. So in our case, the joint is down here. Well, actually, okay, we're not in the spot. Yeah, I remember that I left here, this here. Okay, so, well, yeah, just make sure this, the way I left it here, where you leave it here, is you need to install it the same way. So I need to disconnect the steering wheel, connect it again, so this bolt actually is down here, is this one. And when you install these new ones here, this aluminum piece, you can see here, they don't have any threads. So don't worry about it. You don't need a thread walker. Just use the old bolts, the T30, and just install it in the aluminum, because they're gonna make the threads themselves. And this is typical for Mercedes parts. I've seen this on many parts, on water pump on Mercedes. They don't have threads. You just make the threads with the once you transfer the bolts, because the bolts are metal and this is aluminum. And make sure you don't overstrip it. I mean, when you get it tight, just when it stops, that's it, no more. Okay guys, we mounted. I dismounted the nut on the wheel to spin it to whatever direction was. So I aligned this to the old place where this nut was. You need to follow these directions of these, because that's how it was installed. So in order to be properly reinstalled back, and it's because of these notches here that the shaft here with the bolt, this is where the notch is gonna fit in, so you can actually fit the bolt in. So that's why it's important to follow these bolts and where the places were. So this is ready to go back inside the truck. Everything is installed. Okay guys, you need 2 people to install this because it's heavy, and 1 person holds the top. Then you install the mount here, and you push the 16 millimeters first, and you get them tight with, I'm using this Robbie tool with an extension to get them tight. So it's these 16, the 4 ones. You need to press the pedal on the bottom side here to get this one tight. And then you need to install the 30 millimeters here, is the next. Okay guys, to install, we need to start installing these. Of course, the top part is this, and you have these T30 right here. And remember, again, they're not gonna have a thread, so make sure you put the bolt first in the hole, and then use you can do it by hand or with a ratchet, like electrical ratchet like this. And you install this first, and then you install the second one here and the last one here. And then I'll show you on the outside the alignment of the teeth and with the shafts. And actually, I forgot one thing, is the wiring harness. Remember, this bolt here, it installs here. It's actually right here, and again, there is no thread inside, so you're gonna have to make the thread with the bolt yourself. And in this case, actually this is out. I guess before it wasn't, when I was getting out, it wasn't, it was actually inside here. But anyway, you need to make the thread yourself. And doing it by hand, it's gonna take a little bit of time, of course, but once you get it in, you can make it and get it tied all the way in. And of course, you need to connect all of these, and you connect the blinker, and you need to connect the clock spring here. And I still have this locked because I need to align it on the outside there, so I'm not gonna cut these before I can actually install it, because you don't want this to spin around again. Be careful with this. And yeah, this is it. And once we connect all of these, we can install the two trim pieces and then we go outside. Okay, extremely important, the lower notch, there's an arrow on this side here. This arrow has to be aligned with this, and when you align these two, this is where it's supposed to go, and the bolt will fit in properly. And then you need to align the top part, and with the top part, in my case, I actually marked this one before disassembling where it's supposed to be with the old one, and I marked the old one before getting it out. It's extremely important for you to mark all of these, and you know where they are, you put them back the way they were. And in my case, this is where it was, and I just marked the teeth. I counted the teeth, and this is where I marked between the 6th and the 7th tooth, and that's the way we installed it back. And once you get it inside, you install it all the way in. This one is a 17 bolt with a 17mm nut, and you get these tight. And of course, you need to get the bottom bolt and the nut tight. And since this one goes up and down, you can regulate it to actually fit it in. And before you install this piece, actually, if you're changing this, you may have to use a screwdriver to split the opening here, because a lot of cases when these come, they're tight and this doesn't want to go in, this new part, either on either side. You may have to put a screwdriver inside with a hammer and hammer this material to actually open this so you can slide it in. But once you slide it in, that's it, and you just mount the bolt, and this is it. And now, as you can see I'm pushing, and we have absolutely no play at all, and this is how it's supposed to be. And the only thing is, we need to finish this job. Of course, inside we need to install the trim panels. That's not a big deal. And there's something going on here. Well, I mean, you can see the wires have been, this zip tie here had been broken through time, or got broken with time, and we need to get this. I'm gonna use electrical tape to tie around this cable to put it back in, because it's too close to the steering shaft and it's gonna eat the cables. And this is the whole job of reinstalling this steering wheel column. Again, the huge piece down there. Again, you're gonna need two people. And this is it. 2009 Freightliner Cascadia that uses the rack and pinion instead of the Pitman arm. And the diagnostic is, again, as I said in the beginning, you need to check all these U-joints. If you have a problem, you have a play or knocking, the U-joints are worn out, you have to replace. Because in this case, the U-joints on this shaft got worn out here, and with the rust getting inside, they started locking, they weren't moving, and they destroyed the bearing on the steering column that holds the steering column to the firewall. And this is it from me for today. Again, thanks for watching. Please like my videos and please subscribe. Thank you and have a good day.